Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Have you heard of this new, it might be a micro trend, but this new trend of slow travel? Have you heard that concept? Slow travel?
No. Is it like vagabonding?
No, it's so typically you travel for days, right? And it's maybe a 7 or 10 day trip. You hit the hot spots and then you're out, right? You can only accomplish so many things in 10 days, but you have to kind of see the things you have to see and do the things you have to do. So slow travel is, especially in this new virtual kind of world we're living in, going to a place for months and not days, immersing yourself in the culture, putting your kids in those schools, working from there, living from there, understanding the culture, not just the hot spots, not just visiting, the Trevi Fountain in Rome, but understanding how they live there. I think there's a lot of value in slow travel and just being in a place for, up to 3 months and really just traveling that way, as opposed to what we're used to, hitting it with a flight, then back out, bam.
Yep.
There's just so much value that you can gain from this concept of slow travel.
So I love that concept. Immediately, I think I and probably other people are like, yeah, I love that so much, but how in the world could I ever do that? Which is, like in my situation, I think that's actually very doable right now. Like all of our kids are virtual.
I think a lot of people would be surprised.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Challenging those.
And heck, we're renting our house right now. Yeah. We don't even own it. So like if we were to travel for 3 months, you could save that rent, but that means he's going to rent it to someone else. Yeah. So when you get home, you might not have, which wouldn't be great. But what are your thoughts on, like, how is that easier maybe than what most people would think?
I think just because everything's virtual now, a lot of people are not required to show up to an office. So that's really interesting. Actually, there's this huge kind of mini economy of these mostly young professionals. So it'd be obviously easier as a young professional, but a whole host of young professionals who are traveling from country to country to country and working. So there's organizations that set up a workspace and internet, and they kind of help them with housing. But yeah, they slow travel from country to country to country. I found more and more, since founding Bright Trip, I found more and more of those type of people that I had no idea existed. And there's one family I met last week. He owns his own business. They homeschool their kids for the very reason of traveling to places for lengths of time, not days. Yeah. So it's fascinating.
But
if not now, one of my points is, if not now, in this kind of weird COVID, world where you had this reprieve to work remotely or be in a different time zone, there's just like this. I feel like there's this unique window where people could kind of get away with it.
There absolutely is. And if you kind of run down the checkbook, or checklist, okay, church, well, right now it's kind of both options, in person or virtual. And so if someone's kind of willing to go virtual, so church, work, but if you're working from home anyway, so there's that. Yeah. That's virtual. Then
and a lot of people attending church from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And then school, well, some schools are virtual. Ours were virtual and then not, and then they're virtual again, so there's that. Then it's the money to get someplace, right? And then potentially the extra money to live there. But I wonder, this depends where you would travel to, of course, but do you think that you can most commonly, if you were to go somewhere for 3 months outside of America, do you think, excluding the travel to and from there, while you're there, do you think it costs you more to be there for 3 months than if you were to stay at home, or less?
So I think it's really interesting if you can rent your house out for 6 months, right. 3 to 6 months. That is really attractive.
Yes.
And I think you would probably save money in the end, and you'd be able to have the opportunity to embed in the culture, of course. But yeah, I think different locations differ so much. Like Switzerland probably would not be possible because it's just in a very expensive country.
Okay.
But a lot of developing countries, you'd probably save money, especially on food. And like you could probably, if you rent your house out for, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000, you could probably rent a space in one of these developing countries for, Indonesia, for example, for a fraction of that.
Yes.
So it all kind of.
And then you can use the balance or the difference to pay for travel to and from, or at least help towards those expenses. And go out to eat more, or just do things there, spend a little extra money that you wouldn't spend at home,
Yeah.
but you're making up the difference because you're renting out your house.
Yeah.
I love that idea of slow travel because, I mean, quite frankly, the idea of like flying into, call it Italy, and just trying to tour all of Italy, or even worse yet, like Europe for 10 days,
Yeah.
it's not very attractive to
No,
me.
it's exhausting.
It's like if I go to Italy, I'll be honest, I want to like spend those 10 days in one or two cities.
Yeah.
And just not be on a train or a bus the entire time.
Yeah, and the pressure to see all that it doesn't exist, And I don't know. So I feel like there's so many activities. So Italy is a great example. There are so many activities to do in Italy, really, no matter where you are. And I feel like in some places in the United States, there's just a lack of opportunity for activities.
Yeah.
Whether it's topography or whether it's, I don't know, just availability to walk down the street, or community, or go see a certain industry. I don't know. It just feels like the opportunities are really interesting for activities, especially as a family.
So you think that's a thing? Because that thought has crossed my mind before. Like, it's not uncommon for us on a Saturday or Sunday to just like Marianne and I to kind of run down the checklist of what could we do with the kids today. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, we could go hiking. Well, we could do this. We could do that. And it's sort of weird how short that list
Yeah.
is. And we're in Nashville, which I feel like is fairly family friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think other countries
we do that same sthing,
right?
we usually end up sitting on the couch.
Exactly.
What do you do?
That's kind of the thing. And so, but you're saying there are countries that have more to do for families than here?
I think so. So we're obviously considering, or we're working towards going to Cape Town for 6 months as a part of this. We had always planned a kind of a 6 months to a year abroad as a family. That has always been in the cards for us. But this slow travel, it's kind of like that earlier vision kind of put into terms. So I think that us slow traveling back to Cape Town where we have a network, let's start small where we have a network. But Cape Town, the activities are endless.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, the hiking, there's Table Mountain right there. There's the beaches. There's the vineyards that have tons of kids activities. There's the national parks. There's game drives, or there's safaris, as they call them, game drives. There's just so much to do. I mean, so.
That sounds, you're getting me excited, man. You're going to get me in trouble.
But that's true for a lot. But I think about Thailand, because you guys almost went to Thailand.
Yeah.
There's so much to do in Thailand, too. They have the beaches. They have the mountains. And they have that interesting canal, or the river that runs through that have all these little markets on it. It's just so many things that that I feel like you could do.
Are you going to Cape Town because of COVID or in spite of COVID?
Yeah, we'd always planned on January going to Cape Town.
Okay.
So, but COVID is proving hard. So,
because of Cape Town or because of South Africa's laws?
Yeah, so we had planned to stay for 6 months because I was going to take a business class while I was there at the University of Cape Town. So we would have a student visa. But COVID has just, I think, put a kink in their system and issuing, admission offers.
Oh, I see.
We're working through that. But
okay,
we will go either for 3 months or 6 months.
Okay, so it's not that you're going to not travel because of COVID. That's not the thing. The thing is getting a visa to get in there.
Exactly.
I see.
I think it's really making it, the economics don't make as much sense doing it for 3 months, because we could rent our house out and just be there for 6 months or even a year. And that would make it really, really zero pressure, or make it economic sense, not even pressure. It would be more of it'd make economic sense.
Yep.
So it's harder to justify economically 3 months, but we'd
that
still
makes
do it.
sense.
It's so valuable to us that we would do it. Actually, I was reading, maybe this is justifying to myself, but I was reading a study that kids, especially teens, but kids who have studied abroad or lived abroad score higher grades and have higher incomes. That's obviously a loose correlation, but it's a real study, a couple studies. But I think that's true. I mean, I think you could probably draw a pretty straight line, especially in specific cases where kids have really benefited, and whether through broadened horizons or new experiences or whatever the list or whatever the item is, I bet it would translate into higher grades and higher incomes down the road.
I think it's absolutely conceivable to think that would be the case, because when you think about being, let's just say, getting into the workforce in the 80s, for example, the chances of you having daily correspondence, communication with someone outside of America certainly happened, but it was a lot more rare and it was more industry specific and those types of things. Well, now with people entering the workforce in 2020, I mean, you could be going in a Zoom meeting with 6 people and 2 of them live outside of America. And that's just how that they work at your company. And that's just the thing.
Yeah.
And so if you have a broader, more global kind of understanding, comprehension, like, of course that's going to correlate. Like it makes sense because we're very global now.
Yeah. Because you have the context for multiple conversations and understand or you empathize with their point of view. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Perspective goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's what that is.
Yeah. Life's about perspective. I would say a lot of ways.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do you have some tips and pointers for traveling with kids? So you gave us some reasons why.
Take the Bright Trip How to Travel with Kids course. That's my tip.
By the way, if someone wants to buy that course, where do they go to brighttrip.com and then search for traveling with kids?
So you can go to brighttrip.com/travel with kids. You go right to the course page, or you can go to brighttrip.com/courses, and it has all our courses there.
Okay. All right, cool.
Easy to find.
How much is that course? Do you know offhand?
I think it's $22.
Okay.
But we're having a Cyber Monday sale, so.
Oh, wow.
Which obviously your listeners wouldn't.
Yeah, they're not listening live, but you're selling that course for less than $22?
$22, yeah.
Wow, even $22?
Yeah.
I thought your courses were going to be more like $100. Did
Sorry
you kind of
disappoint you?
do you find that $20 to $40 range is sort of a good window?
So you can buy a guidebook for $20-ish, $20 to $30.
Okay.
So we think, in a lot of ways, at least our first phase of the business is competing in the guidebook market. So if you preferred video over print, blog or even a physical guidebook, and you're offered a chance to take a video course as opposed to buy a guidebook, then we think we can take that share of the market, some share of that market.
Yeah.
So we've really started there.
Yeah. Well, it's working, right?
Yeah. So far.
Do you want to give us any kind of tips on traveling with kids, or do you just want to whet the appetite and let us take the course?
That course is so beautiful and comprehensive that if you're really interested, you should go.
You don't
take
want to
it.
hurt it. I see what
I
you're
don't want to
doing.
hurt it. No, I'm just trying to recall the exact tips. But anyway, yeah.
No, it's fine.
You
All right. Yeah. So,
but lots of value with traveling with kids. That's a core concept around just our family, but also Bright Trip, of course, is one of the key beliefs.
I would be very interested in traveling
to Thailand. That trip didn't happen, right?
No, it didn't happen because that happened right when COVID, and no one knew what was going on with COVID, and Thailand was actually locking down pretty quick, and so I think I'm glad in hindsight we didn't go, because if we'd have went, the experience was not going to be the same anyway. Yeah. It was at that point where, like, to get into a market, they're checking your temperature, and not that many people were out, and so I think it's probably better that we delayed that. Yeah.
Well,
trip.
we cancanceled our Paris trip.
That's right.
As well.
That was over that time.
I think that was the right decision too.
Yeah.
Kicking and screaming, but we did.
Yeah. But the traveling with kids in a car, that's an interesting one. We have 12 hours to my home in New York, and we have 12 hours to Mariana's family in Pennsylvania, and with 5 kids, it's too far to drive, man. But we have driven it a few times, and I don't think there's a good way to drive that far with kids in it. You know what I mean? That's meant to take a plane.
Fly.
You got to fly. Yeah.
I hate driving.